Welcome to the OK Book Club, where we dive into books, stories, people, and tons of different topics. And today's episode is our second episode of Book 5, Lost Evangeline by Kate DiCamillo. And before you listen to this episode, as always, pause it right now, stop it right now. You want to read chapters 3 through 6, pages 15 through 33. Yes, listen, it's a short number of pages, but it's worth it. And there's tons and tons of different things here to talk about. So, as we get into the book, really starting to see the narrative unwind, you want to think about, and some of this is going to be for students, for children, young adults, but this is helpful for parents as well. You have to develop critical thinking. The best way to do this as someone young is to read, and constantly think. So as we go in here, you want to ask your questions that clearly it's a fairy tale. It's magic. Little people this size don't exist, right? We know that, right? That's why we call this fantasy or a fairy tale as opposed to realistic fiction, friends. But as we go forward, you want to be thinking and what questions do you have? What do you think will be happening? What are you concerned about? Thinking about the characters, thinking about the action, thinking about the plot. Number one, where'd she come from, right? Number two, even though there's magic here and this is a fairy tale, why is she so small? Is there an explanation behind that? And in this chapter, we see the shoemaker says, I wonder what became of Evangeline. Oh, lost Evangeline, where can you be? Right? She was in his shop and she's hiding behind items. And this whole idea about, oh my goodness, play on words, lost Evangeline. Is she lost really? Right? Or has she been found? And I found two instances of a connection to another book. And you always want to, again, there's so many different levels of thinking, but and comprehending, and know that you're understanding what you read, boys and girls. And that is one of the ways is through connections. And a connection is, oh yes, they back in the day, they used to call this text to text. Oh, I have something that I remember from another book. And what's shouting out loud to me, if those of you that are friends of Oliver Jeffers, and he is the author of The Day the Crayons Came Home, that famous picture book. He's a prolific illustrator and author, and he wrote this little picture book that became a short animated film, Lost and Found. And immediately I thought of those connections, because here he is saying, where is Evangeline? And in that story, it was a story about a penguin, right? And this little boy thought, he must be lost. But no, the penguin was looking for company. The penguin was looking to have a friend. And you ultimately understand that, these play on words, lost and found, is great. So as we go forward, immediately we learn in this chapter that the shoemaker was worried that he was going to lose Evangeline, that someone would come and take her away. And yes, at a certain level, children, of course, you can envision and think about someone taking her away, right? But why is it that someone would take her away? Well, again, you walk in, and even though this is fantasy, you're a regular person and you see someone small, right? It's not that, this person was eventually that in the past had belonged to someone. No, this is someone that's really tiny and unique and different. And for that reason alone, it's wrong. It's different. And someone's going to want to take Evangeline away, to kidnap her, to use in some kind of circus act, right? And it's funny. I'm telling you, as talk about connections, I was trying to go to the far reaches of my mind to say I got another connection where someone is kidnapped, someone is unique, and some person, bad person, wants to take that person away from a family. And I couldn't think. I said it's got to be another Kate DiCamillo story, but you know what? I finally figured it out. We had the story of Tuck Everlasting, which is definitely going to be a future episode. A swindler, a kidnapper, a guy that all he wanted to do was make money, ended up kidnapping this family who had this special power of living forever. Talk about a great kind of connection. But getting back to our story, in chapter 3, fantastic illustrations, and it was just about Evangeline hiding whenever a customer would come into the shoemaker's shop. And again, talk about the brilliance of an author that's on the top of her game. I'm going to say this throughout these episodes, but you want to, as a future writer, children, you want to analyze and look at the simplicity of these words. Listen to this. In the beginning of the chapter, she talks about the door opening. And hopefully you've experienced this in small independent shops. The door opens, a bell rings, right? And we all have had these doors in our homes where it's, it needs oil and it just squeaks when it opens, right? Well, and so it was good that the hinges on the door to the cobbler's shop were rusty. And they made a small complaining sound whenever the door was opened. What a brilliant line. Again, show and tell. Excuse me. Show, don't tell. Don't write the door squeaked when it opened. Try to be unique. Try to come up with some figurative language. Play with the sentence, children. We'll have tons of future episodes on writing, but the best way you want to learn how to write is read great writers. And here's another great line. She listened to the rise and fall of conversation with her father, talking to the customers. Listen to the rise and fall of conversation. We can all relate to that, especially if you're waiting for to talk to somebody in case, just like Evangeline's waiting for her father to, get back to hanging out with her instead of talking to customers. It's like on and on and on. It's like, oh, please, right? And some of the parts of the conversation are juicy and interesting, right? As you're listening covertly, but others, it's like, come on, stop. So it's not only the magic of playing with sentences and coming up with great lines, it's the vocabulary, right? And she is known for this. Through the years with my book clubs with my students, these would be perfect books to read, but too often there's too many big words, as the kids would say. But again, it's an opportunity to learn, and thankfully she sprinkles them in, not overwhelming. But listen to this word. I challenge any adults. This is a word that you know what the meaning is, but very rarely would you use it. But, take a hold of a word like this and start using it. I will, I can tell you this. The word is bereft, right? And it's from the context of he's trying to find Evangeline because she's hiding, and it's like a little game. And he stood in the center of the shop looking truly bereft. And again, I referenced this in my previous episode about power words, but definitely it's worthy of a future episode. When learning new words, It's not about the definition. It really isn't. That's a foundation, yes. But when I looked up the word, because I haven't used it in a long time, right? Bereft is sad and lonely. A lot of times being associated with passing away, or that you're deprived of something, you're lacking something. But just knowing the word's meaning is useless if you can't use it correctly. So it's the proper usage. So saying it properly. And again, finding examples of sentences. And then again, if you're going to truly remember a word, don't memorize the words in isolation. Start using them. You don't use it, you're going to lose it. So chapter 3, like I said, is very simply all about Evangeline playing this little game with the shoemaker about hiding and then, come and find me. And another theme that I have to touch on, which is so much a part of the Norrøn tales, is singing, right? The shoemaker started singing. You saw this happen throughout the first 2 books. And what else? We're talking about the sea and the stars. Again, unique little things about this author that she loves weaving through her stories. So in case you haven't figured out, I have to stop my audio recording of this podcast occasionally because, noise in the background. And of course, you know who just woke up, Jasper. I take him for a walk, right? I bring him back. And those of you that have dogs know about the zoomies. In case you don't know what a zoomie is, right? The zoomies. We're out walking for like almost an hour. I don't know, at least a half an hour, 40 minutes. And he's still rambunctious. He comes in and he's circling through the dining room into the kitchen like he's a racehorse going around the track. And I don't know. Just to have fun with him, I'm kind of waving him through the kitchen, almost kind of like a matador with a bull. Come on, let's go. And I literally, as I swoop through, my arms flailing, I bang my head into the side of the door frame. I swear, thankfully I'm okay. It's like I got a concussion. It was so violent. I got this scratch over my forehead now. Thankfully, I'm not dizzy or anything. I'm okay. But, oh my goodness. And yeah, sure, Jasper has no clue this is going on. But back to the podcast. And again, going down some rabbit holes in terms of learning. The author writes, not that he's a shoemaker, but he's a cobbler, right? And I'm thinking, wow, there's a difference in words there. And again, opportunities to learn. Words, they make a difference. Every word has its own unique meaning. That's why it's a different word. A shoemaker is someone that makes shoes. A cobbler is not someone that makes shoes. It's someone that repairs shoes, right? And there's no shoemakers today. Clearly, there were lots in the past, but yes, there's cobblers. We don't call them cobblers anymore. We call them shoe repair people. So when I looked up this definition of a cobbler and how it is different from a shoemaker, again, going down a rabbit hole, but this is for my friends in Mendham Township, New Jersey. What was in the definition of a cobbler? Someone who mends shoes. And there's another word, right? How is it that mend differs from fixes, right? So again, the joy of words. And as the story goes, those friends of mine that grew up in Mendham Township, live in Mendham Township, as the story goes, the original person that settled this area changed it from, apparently, as the story goes, possibly, there's not a definitive answer here, but they changed it from Black Horse to Mendham because this was where this original settler, Reverend Byron, was originally from Mendham, Suffolk, in England. But there's this story, this legend that he was a a priest, a reverend in the local hilltop church, and he vowed to mend his unruly parishioners in church, right? So it is interesting. Again, little sidebar, digressing here, but let's get back to our story. Chapter 4, we're introduced to this little lantern on her bedside table, her nightstand, her bedside drawer. Again, so many uses of so many words, but you know that little table next to your bed where you have your lights, and in this case, it's a little lantern. And now I figured out that other image that's on the cover. It is the lantern. And friends, again, we're going to have another episode on this figurative language, the metaphor. So, friends, when you dive into particular words that an author will use, in this case, this lantern, listen to why this lantern, right, which is basically a little light that you kind of can turn on. Today it's powered by batteries. Back in the day it was powered by oil or powered by kerosene or even a match, a flame, right? This is where these lighthouses, the idea that they look like huge lighthouses. So the author, in talking about a metaphor, he says, this little lantern may be small, she's talking to Evangeline, but it gives off enough light so we will always be able to find each other, my dear. We must make sure we take it with us when we go to sea. So if you hear this, friends, you're not just thinking of the literal lantern, you're thinking of the figurative lantern, this item that can connect us together, that is part of who we are, the love between us, right? This will connect us. So it's not just that it will help us see things, it will help us in our relationship. So I know we're going a little deep here, but you know that this lantern is going to mean something for their future and helping them stay together, right? Physically, but also emotionally. So what happens? She's thinking to herself that she is happy. And again, great writing technique. But the author, all of a sudden, she says she's happy, but one night, boom, you know this is now going in another direction. It's so simple. Words like suddenly, all of a sudden. In this case, although I teach my students, you don't start a sentence with the word buts, B-U-T. This works, right? As she laid in bed, she overheard her parents talking to her, and her mother basically says that this little person, she frightens me. And she never thought that, in fact, she knew that she was closer to her father, the shoemaker, but her mother fearing her, right? And the mother, the wife, she says, I don't like this idea that you want to go out to the sea again. And she's putting all these thoughts into you. And then respectfully, the shoemaker comes back to his wife. I'm sorry, honey, you don't feel this way, that you don't feel the same way that I do, but I have never been happier, right? So as the chapter ends, and listen, I'm sure we all have these connections, young or old, where we hear something and we're so curious about hearing something, but it can be so heartbreaking because as much as you want to hear what they're talking about, you don't want to hear certain things. And this is what happens to Evangeline. And what happens as she turns out the light, she whispered to the light, the lantern, she's talking to it, someday I will go to sea. Sea as in going out to the ocean. Chapter 5. They're in town. The wife is talking. People are talking about her husband. There's gossip. And as much as you have a small community, I never like this when people talk. And it's so hard to get away from. So what's happening? The baker comes up to her. What's going on with your husband? Why isn't he he spends too much time with himself. People are thinking there's something going on. I saw a little doll in your husband's pocket. The minister in town, which back in the day, friends, is so important. Communities thrived, and the local church was so important. And the local minister says to the wife, "What's going on? How come he no longer accompanies you, walks with you," right, children? And the shoemaker, troubled by her husband's soul, spoke without thinking, "It's because he has been bewitched." And immediately she regretted saying it out loud. Again, friends, for your background knowledge, back in the day, people, it's in American history, if you did not, if you were strange, if you were different, if you stood out, for many reasons, people thought that you were taken over by the devil, that you were a witch, and then you would be ostracized, friends, which would mean that people would, in some cases, take you away from a family, jail you. The Salem witch trials, you can look it up, back in Massachusetts, was very controversial in the history of our country. But anyway, she says this and she regrets saying this immediately. But what happens at the end? She says she's got to help out, and when she's helping out here, she's doing the wrong thing. You got to think ahead, children. You got to think what's not on the page. What does she do? She fixes the door. She oils it so it doesn't make any noise. So stop and think right now. Children, pause this video. Why is this so bad? Right? Because this is how Evangeline was able to not be found. When that door was opened, it made noise, and that allowed Evangeline to hide. If she doesn't hear the door open, she won't hide. Someone will see her. Someone will take her away. And a brilliant line to end the chapter. And for that moment of silence, the shoemaker's wife was satisfied, pleased to think that the world was just as it should be. In her mind, it's just as it should be. And again, this happens with relationships with people. People think differently. Husband and wives, they've married many years, and that's not what the husband clearly wanted. So you know where this story is going. I'm going to guess Evangeline may be kidnapped, may be taken. She will lose the shoemaker. We'll see. And yes, this is what is about to happen in chapter 6. On the other side of town, in a dream, listen to her name, Mrs. Penrith Smith. She dreamed of a princess. This princess had a pair of magic shoes that granted her immortality, which means, friends, to live forever. And it's so funny that I was thinking of Tuck Everlasting, but here you go. She wants these shoes. Her manservant, she demands that her manservant Gristle, what a name, what a great name, goes and gets, demanded basically. And again, you're having connections to the Countess, right? From the previous story, the Hotel Balzar demands that these shoes are made because you can tell she's old, she's sleeping, and she's not well. She needs these shoes made, and Gristle goes to the cobbler. And of course, because he opens the door and it makes no noise, he sees this little girl. He goes back and he tells the old lady, this is what I found. And the old lady says, forget the shoes, get this little girl. Right? And ultimately the chapter ends, and he basically says, mind, I am not in a mood for bargaining. Name your price and I will pay it. He wants the little girl. The shoemaker's face went very pale. I don't know what you're speaking of. And he says, I don't care. It's going to be mine someday, some way. And that's how the chapter ends. And you again, Friends, this is how you get smarter, by being able to figure what's not on the page. And yes, we did predict it, didn't we? And two final points here before we wrap up our episode here. Again, so the connections, and they're subtle, but this is why they're related. In the Tale of Norendi, Miss Penrith Smith, she says she must have her. And again, just like the demands of the Countess. And how about this line? Listen to this one. This jumped off the page, figuratively speaking. The old widow, and even that, children, a widow, you have to infer this is why she has lots of money, because her husband passed away and she's older. And generally speaking, you're older and you're around a long time. You don't spend money. You've got tons of it, right? But anyway, listen to this line. The old widow fell silent. This is after she learns about this little girl. The old widow fell silent, worrying the bed covers with her hands. The bed covers are worried? But think about that. What does that mean? It's like what's happening in this moment is so terrifying to us, the reader, but it's so unbelievable to this old lady. She can't believe it. It's as if, again, her hands are shaking and the bed covers are saying, whoa, you're supposed to be just chilling out here. What's going on? Again, brilliant line. So this has been a longer podcast, and it's only been a few pages, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the journey as we continue with this great book by Kate DiCamillo, Lost Evangeline. Send me your comments to kevmok21@gmail.com. And I tell you what, I love reviews. Go to Apple Podcast. Give me a 5-star review. And if you do, with your permission, I'll definitely give you a shout out on a future episode. So this has been the OK Book Club podcast, and keep learning.